What's up, everybody? Michael Walsh here. So this is kind of a follow-up to UFC 319 and a follow-up to some videos I made after it. But this is just an important topic to address, I think, because after Chimaev beat du Plessis, you had this huge debate in the community about whether or not the fight was boring, whether or not it was Chimaev's fault, etc., etc. I made a few videos on the topic. I very firmly insisted that the fight was boring and that, yes, Chimaev played a big fucking part in that. And a lot of people got mad about that. And I'm just here to address the topic of, like, what happens when your favorite fighter has a boring fight? Because it does happen, and it's okay to admit it happens, okay? Fedor Emelianenko was one of my favorite fighters growing up, and the guy had a few boring fights. His fight with Semi Schilt is pretty boring. And an even worse example is Fujita, Ironhead, from Pride. One of my favorite fighters. Like his fights with Mark Kerr, with Wanderlei Silva, with James Thompson. Those are just all-time amazing fights. I love that guy. But he had some boring fights. Like if you watch his fight with Gilbert Yvel, which, you know, just even hearing those names together, if you haven't seen the fight, you'd probably assume it was like one of the best wars in the history of the sport and there was a really violent knockout. But what happened? Yvel was the striker, he didn't have the best grappling, and Fujita, despite being a guy who was willing to get into wars with people, was a wrestler first and foremost, and he took the opportunity and he just took Yvel down the whole time. He just held him down. Not a lot of ground and pound happened. Nothing good as far as like submission attempts really happened. And it was just a boring fight, and it went the distance, and it's fucking lame. And that's okay. Fujita's still one of my favorite fighters. It's just that, you know, he had moments where he wasn't guaranteed action. And that fight sucked. And like, I'm not going to recommend anyone go watch that fight. And you're not a casual if you watch that fight and you say, this fucking sucked. Okay? And it's just okay to point this out. It's very rare that a fighter has literally zero boring fights. Those guys are out there, but that's hard to pull off. Even if you're one of the most exciting action fighters ever, it's hard to make it through a full career and not have some stinkers. That's just how it goes. And that can be the opponent's fault. It can be your fault. It can be you losing. It can be you winning. But in any case, that shit happens, and it's okay to call it out. And if other people are calling it out and saying that fight fucking sucked, I thought that fight would be great, like, you don't have to get mad at those people. It's okay to just admit it sucked, but say, you know, hey, that's a one-off, or say, hey, like, yeah, that sucked, and I wouldn't like it if all of his fights were like that, but, like, all of his other fights are great, and I don't think all of his fights going forward are going to be like that. You know, and with Chimaev, we'll see, you know, there might be reason to worry that his fights will be boring going forward, that he's going to be a champion who's happy to take the easy win. But we'll see. Maybe he just blows the next two guys out of the water and we just forget this even happened. But it's okay to just admit this happened, and you don't have to jump down the throat of everyone else who's pointing out that it happened.